The morning was bright and fresh. The city was waking up slowly. Birds were singing, cars were honking, and people were rushing to work. At the big train station, hundreds of passengers were waiting for the train to arrive. Some were rich businessmen, in suits, some were tourists with bags, and some were simple workers going to their jobs. But one man stood quietly near the first-class coach. His name was David. David was a tall black man with simple, clean clothes. He wore no fancy watch, no expensive shoes. He carried only a small bag and a brown notebook in his hand. His face was calm. His eyes were kind, but full of deep thoughts. No one knew who he was. No one cared. The train slowly arrived. The doors of the first-class coach opened with a soft sound. Many rich passengers stepped in, men in suits, women with shiny handbags, and old men with gold watches. They all talked, loudly laughed, and looked at each other. They were used to traveling first class. David stepped in quietly after them. Suddenly, all heads turned. A rich, white businessman named Mr. Clark looked at David from head to toe. He frowned. His face became red with anger. He stood up and said, in a loud voice so everyone could hear, "You don't belong here. This is first class. You must have made a mistake." Everyone stopped talking. The coach became silent. All eyes were on David. Some passengers covered their mouths. Some whispered to each other. Some looked at David with hate, some with surprise. But David said nothing. He slowly walked to a window seat, sat down calmly, and opened his little notebook. He started writing something in it like he didn't hear Mr. Clark's rude words. Mr. Clark was shocked. How could this man ignore him? "Excuse me," Mr. Clark said again, louder this time. "I said you don't belong here. You people travel. In the back coaches, not here with us." David turned his head slowly and looked at Mr. Clark. His face was still calm, still peaceful. His voice was soft but strong. "I am sitting in the right place," David said. "And I have a ticket for this seat." Mr. Clark laughed loudly. "A ticket for first class? You? How is that possible? You look like a simple worker. Maybe you stole that ticket," he said, smiling meanly. Some passengers laughed quietly. Others looked away, feeling uncomfortable. A small girl sitting beside her mother whispered, "Mom, why is that man sitting here? Is he lost?" Her mother pulled her close and said, "Don't look. Maybe the conductor will send him away." But David kept writing in his notebook. His face was still calm. He did not shout. He did not fight. He waited. Soon the conductor came. He was a short man in a blue uniform, carrying a small machine to check tickets. He smiled at the passengers and said, "Tickets, please. Show me. Your tickets, everyone." Mr. Clark quickly called him. "Officer, this man is sitting in first class, but I think he made a mistake. Maybe his ticket is for the back coach," Mr. Clark said, smiling cruelly. The conductor walked to David. "Sir, may I see your ticket, please?" he asked politely. David took out a small golden ticket from his pocket. The conductor took it and looked carefully. Suddenly, the conductor's eyes became wide. His face changed. He looked at David with surprise. He checked the ticket again and again. "Is there a problem, officer?" Mr. Clark asked, smiling. The conductor turned to him. "Sir, there is no mistake. This gentleman has a special first-class golden ticket. Only very, very important people get this kind of ticket. In fact, I have never seen one before in my life," the conductor said loudly. The coach became silent again. "Golden ticket?" Mr. Clark whispered, feeling cold inside. "Yes," the conductor said. "This ticket is not for ordinary first-class passengers. Only special guests or owners of the train company receive this ticket." Everyone gasped. "Is he the owner of the train?" someone whispered. "No, it can't be," another said. David smiled gently. He closed his notebook and placed it in his bag. Mr. Clark's face turned white. His hand started to shake. His smile disappeared. Who are you? He asked in a soft voice. David looked at him kindly. My name is David Brown, he said. And no, I am not lost. I am exactly where I belong. The passengers were shocked. They stared at David with wide eyes. But you look so simple, so poor, Mr. Clark said, confused. David smiled again. Clothes do not show who a man truly is. A man's heart, mind, and dreams make him rich, not his suit. Or shoes, David said softly. The little girl pulled her mother's hand. Mommy, he's not poor. He's someone very special, she whispered. Her mother nodded slowly. The conductor gave the ticket back to David with a little bow. Thank you, sir. Please enjoy your journey, the conductor said with respect. David nodded kindly. Mr. Clark sat down slowly in his seat. He felt small. He felt foolish. He could not look at David. His face was red with shame. The train started moving. Outside the window, the city began to pass by. But inside the coach, no one spoke. The air was full of silence and thoughts. Who was this man really? Why did he have a golden ticket? What was his true story? One thing was clear. David was no ordinary passenger, and this was only the beginning of the journey. The real story was yet to be revealed. What would happen next? Everyone wanted to know. The train moved slowly across the city. People outside were walking, working, and living their busy lives. But inside the first-class coach, time felt different. It felt slow, quiet, and strange. Everyone kept looking at David. Some stared, some whispered, some looked away, feeling ashamed. No one understood who David really was. A little boy sitting with his father looked at David with big eyes. He pulled his father's coat and whispered, Dad, who is that man? Why does he have a golden ticket? His father shook his head. I don't know, son, but he must be someone very important. Only the train owner or a big boss gets that kind of ticket. The boy stared at David again. David smiled kindly at the boy. The boy smiled back. Mr. Clark sat stiff in his seat. His hands were cold. His face was still red. He felt embarrassed. He kept thinking, how can this be? He looks like a simple man. Poor clothes, no watch, no expensive bag. But he has the golden ticket? Who is he really? Mr. Clark looked around. Other passengers were whispering quietly. Maybe he is the owner of the train company, said a young woman. No, he can't be. Owners don't dress like that, said an old man with a newspaper. But the conductor said his ticket is special. More special than even first class, said another. Everyone was confused. Everyone was curious. But no one was brave enough to ask David directly. David sat peacefully by the window. His small brown notebook was open again. He was writing slowly, smiling softly. His face showed no anger, no fear. He looked like a man who knew something no one else knew. The whispers grew louder. Maybe he is a secret millionaire. Maybe he is a prince from another country. Maybe he bought the train company and came to check it in secret. No one knew the truth. The mystery became bigger and bigger. Suddenly, a well-dressed lady sitting nearby spoke loudly to her friend. I don't understand. Why doesn't he wear a nice suit if he's rich? Why does he look like a worker? It's strange. Very strange. David heard her words. He smiled gently, but kept writing in his notebook. Mr. Clark looked at David again. His mind was full of questions. What is he writing in that notebook? A letter? A report? A plan? He wondered. Mr. Clark could not sit quietly. He stood up and walked to the conductor, who stood near the door. Hey, officer, he whispered. Are you sure about that man? Maybe his ticket is fake. Maybe he tricked you. The conductor shook his head quickly. No, sir. His ticket is real. In fact, it's more real than yours. This golden ticket is from the train company's main office. Only the real owner or his special guest can have it, the conductor said with respect. Mr. Clark's heart beat fast. The owner? But the owner is a big businessman, a rich man. I met him once. He wore a suit and shiny shoes, Mr. Clark said. The conductor smiled. Sir, rich people don't always wear rich clothes. Some stay simple. Maybe this is the real boss. Maybe. The man you met was just a manager, the conductor said. Mr. Clark felt cold inside. He sat down slowly. His head was full of thoughts. I insulted the owner? Oh, no. What if he fires me from my company? What if he remembers my face forever? Meanwhile, other passengers kept watching David. A teenage boy pulled out his phone and searched the train company's website. Hey, look, he whispered to his friend. The company got a new owner last month, but they never showed his face. Maybe this is him, his friend gasped. Really? So this simple-looking man is the new boss? People turned to listen. The news spread fast. New owner, secret owner. The whispers filled the coach. David heard the whispers. He smiled. Again, but said nothing. He finished writing in his notebook and gently closed it. The little boy who had smiled at David stood up and walked to him. His mother gasped, No, come back. But it was too late. The boy stood beside David and asked softly, Mr. Are you the owner of this train? David looked at the boy kindly. What do you think? He asked. The boy smiled. I think yes, because you are not scared. Even when the other man shouted at you, you stayed calm. Only strong people are like that. My teacher says rich hearts are better than rich clothes. David laughed softly. Your teacher is very wise, he said. The boy smiled again and ran, back to his seat. Everyone in the coach felt warm. Their faces changed. Some smiled. Some looked down, feeling ashamed of their thoughts. But Mr. Clark felt worse. His heart was heavy. I made a big mistake. I judged him too soon. What will he do to me? Will he punish me? The train moved fast across the open fields. The sound of the wheels on the tracks was soft and steady. But inside the first-class coach, the air was not calm. Everyone kept looking at David, the quiet black man with the golden ticket. Mr. Clark sat in his seat feeling angry, nervous, and confused. He could not believe it. How can this man be so important? Look at him. Simple clothes, no watch, no ring, but he looks like a poor worker. But the conductor said he has the golden ticket. How is this possible? Mr. Clark's pride was hurt. He felt insulted. He wanted to teach David a lesson. I will. Show everyone that this man does not belong here, Mr. Clark thought. I will find out the truth. Maybe he is lying. Maybe the ticket is fake. I will make him feel small in front of everyone. He made a plan in his mind. Mr. Clark stood up and walked to the back of the first-class coach. There, he saw two other businessmen talking. Gentlemen, Mr. Clark said softly, did you see that man sitting by the window? The black man with the notebook? They nodded. Yes, everyone is talking about him. Strange, isn't it? One man said. Very strange, the other agreed. He has the golden ticket, they say. Mr. Clark smiled. I think he is lying, Mr. Clark whispered. I think he tricked the conductor. No poor man can get a golden ticket. The two men looked shocked. Really? But the conductor said the ticket is real. Mr. Clark nodded. Yes, but maybe he stole the ticket, or maybe someone gave it to him by mistake. I think we should test him. Make him prove who he really is. The two men looked at each other. What do you want to do? Mr. Clark smiled cruelly. We will ask him hard questions. Rich, powerful men know many things. Business, stocks, the train company. If he cannot answer, then we will know the truth. We will make him feel small in front of everyone. The two men agreed. Good idea. Let's see if this simple man is really who he says he is. The plan was set. Mr. Clark and the two men walked back to their seats. The other passengers watched them, wondering what they were doing. Mr. Clark cleared his throat loudly. "Excuse me, sir," he said to David. David looked up from his notebook. His face was calm, his eyes kind. "Yes?" David said softly. Mr. Clark smiled, but his smile was fake. "My friends and I have some questions. You see, we are curious. You have the golden ticket, but no one knows who you are. Maybe you can answer a few simple questions to help us understand you better." David smiled gently. "Of course. You may ask." The passengers leaned closer. Everyone wanted to listen. Mr. Clark spoke first. "Tell us, who is the main owner of this train company?" David smiled. "The company was bought last month by a new owner," he said. "His name has not been made public yet, but you will all know soon enough." Mr. Clark's smile became weak. The answer was correct. One of the other men asked quickly, "What is the cost of this train's new engine model?" "Only the company's boss knows that," David thought for a moment, then said, "The new engine cost $6 million. It was imported from Germany. The deal was signed by the main office last month." The two men looked surprised. The answer was perfect. Mr. Clark felt nervous but asked another question. "Tell me, how many first-class coaches does this train have?" David smiled. "3, he said. "But next month, the company plans to add a 4th coach for long trips." Gasps filled the coach. Everyone was shocked. The passengers whispered, "He knows everything. Maybe he really is the new owner. He is smarter than all these businessmen." Mr. Clark felt his face burn. His plan was failing, but he had one last idea. "Sir," Mr. Clark said loudly, "you speak well, but rich men have rich hands. Show us your wallet. Show us your money. Let's see how rich you really are." Some passengers gasped. "How rude! How disrespectful!" David smiled kindly. He stood up slowly. Everyone watched. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, old leather wallet. He opened it. Inside was no money, just a photo. David held up the photo. It showed a small house, an old woman, and 2 little children. David spoke softly. "This is my mother. She worked as a cleaner for many years. She saved every penny to send me to school. These are my children. I live for them. Not for gold, not for money." The coach became quiet. David continued, "Money is not true wealth. Wisdom, kindness, patience. These are true riches. My ticket was not bought with cash. It was given to me by the train company because I am their new owner." Gasps filled the coach again. David smiled gently. "Yes, I bought this company last month, but I did not want to tell anyone yet. I wanted to see how people treat a simple man. I wanted to know who judges by clothes and who judges by heart." Everyone stared. Mr. Clark sat down slowly. His mouth was open. He could not speak. His face was pale. David looked at him kindly. "You wanted to shame me, but you only shamed yourself," David said softly. Mr. Clark closed his eyes. He felt small, weak, foolish. The little boy clapped his hands. "I knew it. I knew he was special," the boy said. His mother smiled and nodded. The coach was full of smiles now. Everyone felt warm inside. The truth was out. The mystery was over. David was the real owner, and he was a man with a rich heart. But this was not the end. More surprises were coming. What would David do next? Would he forgive Mr. Clark? Would he teach the passengers a lesson? The journey was not over. The best part was still to come. The train moved smoothly over the long iron tracks. Outside the window, green fields passed by. But inside the first-class coach, everyone sat quiet and still. No one wanted to miss a word. All eyes were on David, the quiet black man who now stood tall before them. They knew the truth now. David was the new owner of the train company. But why was he dressed so simple? Why did he hide this secret for so long? What was he going to do next? Even Mr. Clark sat frozen in his seat. His face was pale. His hands shook. He felt small and foolish. Just an hour ago, he had insulted David. He thought David was a poor man who did not belong in first class. But now he knew David could fire him with a single word. But David smiled kindly at him. There was no anger in his eyes. David raised his hand gently. "Dear passengers," he said softly, "you all wonder why I sat here dressed like this, quiet and simple, not looking rich or powerful." Everyone leaned forward to listen. "I did this because I wanted to see the truth," David said. "I wanted to see who shows respect to all people, and who only respects money and clothes." The passengers looked at each other. Some looked ashamed. Some looked at the floor. David smiled again. "And today, I saw everything. I saw kindness in the little boy who spoke to me. I saw fear in the eyes of some passengers. I saw pride and anger in others. But now you all know who I really am." The coach was silent. Then David spoke words that shocked everyone. "I have decided to make an announcement right now," he said. "It will change this train and this company forever." The passengers gasped. A big announcement? What could it be? David looked at the conductor and nodded. The conductor quickly picked up the small microphone that connected to all coaches. "Ladies and gentlemen," the conductor said, "listen carefully. Our new company owner, Mr. David, has an important message for all passengers and workers." David took the microphone. His voice was calm but strong. "From this day," David said, "this train company will follow a new rule. Every passenger, rich or poor, black or white, young or old, will be treated with the same respect. No more judging by clothes or color. No more rich-only clubs. This train belongs to everyone." The passengers were shocked. Some cheered softly, some smiled. But David was not finished. "Also," he said, "this train will have new special tickets for hard-working people, cleaners, drivers, teachers, factory workers, people like my mother who worked day and night but never sat in first class. They will ride for free once every month in first class as my guests." Gasps filled the coach. A woman wiped tears from her eyes. "This is beautiful. No owner ever cared about poor people before," she whispered. David smiled. "And one more thing," he said. "Today I will reward the person who showed the truest heart on this train." Everyone looked around. Who could it be? David turned to the little boy who had spoken to him earlier. "Come here, young man," David said kindly. The boy stood up, shy but happy. He walked to David. "You spoke to me when others were afraid. You smiled at me when others turned away. You did not care about my clothes or my color. You have a brave heart," David said. The boy smiled wide. David took out a small card from his pocket. "This is a golden pass," he said. "It lets you and your family ride this train free in first class for the whole year." The boy gasped. His mother covered her mouth in shock. The passengers clapped. Some even stood and cheered. But David was not finished. He turned to Mr. Clark. The coach became silent again. Mr. Clark felt fear in his chest. "Now he will fire me. Now he will punish me in front of everyone," he thought. But David smiled gently. "Mr. Clark," David said softly, "you judged me by my skin and clothes. You tried to shame me. But today you also learned a lesson, Mr. Clark nodded slowly. "Yes, sir, I was wrong. I am deeply sorry," he whispered. David put a hand on his shoulder. "I will not fire you, Mr. Clark. I will not punish you. Instead, I want you to teach this lesson to others. From today, you will lead the new respect program in this company. You will teach all workers how to treat every person with honor and kindness." Gasps again filled the coach. Mr. Clark looked surprised. "You trust me? After what I did?" he asked softly. David smiled. "Yes, because change starts with those who learned the hardest lesson." The train moved smoothly toward the next big station. The sun was shining bright outside, but inside the first-class coach, the passengers were full of excitement. They could not stop talking about David, the quiet black man who was now known to be the new owner of the train company. Everyone felt different now. The same man they had ignored, judged, and even insulted was the most powerful person on the train. But the journey was not finished. David had promised another surprise at the next station. What could it be? Mr. Clark sat in his seat quietly. His heart was still heavy with shame, but there was also hope. David had given him a second chance, a chance to become a better man. The little boy with the golden pass sat happily beside his mother. He held the ticket tightly in his hand. His mother's eyes were full of tears, but they were tears of joy. Everyone waited for the next stop. As the train slowed down near the big station, David stood up again. He smiled kindly at the passengers. "Dear friends," he said softly, "we are about to reach our next station. There is something very special waiting for us there. I want you all to see it." The passengers leaned forward. What could this surprise be? David nodded to the conductor. The conductor spoke into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, in 2 minutes we will stop at Greenfield Station. Please stay in your seats. Our company's new plan will begin here," the passengers whispered to each other. "What plan? Maybe free food or a concert? Maybe gifts for everyone?" The train slowly stopped at the big station. David smiled. "Please follow me," he said gently. The first-class passengers stood up and followed David out of the coach. Some people from the other coaches also came to see what was happening. When they all stepped onto the platform, they gasped. Hundreds of workers were standing there, but they were not the usual workers. They were cleaners, porters, cooks, guards, ticket checkers, people who worked hard every day but were never noticed by the rich passengers. All these workers were now dressed neatly and standing proudly in a line. David turned to the passengers. "These are the real heroes of this train company," he said. "For years they cleaned your mess, carried your bags, cooked your food, but you never saw them. You never thanked them. But today, that changes." The crowd was silent. David continued. "From today, every worker here will receive better pay, better food, and free health care for their families. They will also get one free ride in first class every month." The workers smiled widely. Some even wiped tears from their eyes. The passengers clapped. Some were ashamed they had never thought about these workers before. But there was more. David turned to a small old woman standing at the front of the workers. She wore a simple dress and her hair was gray. David smiled warmly. "This is Mrs. Brown," he said. "She was the cleaning lady on this train for 30 years. She cleaned every seat, every floor. Nobody thanked her. But I remember her, because she is my mother." The crowd gasped. Mr. Clark put a hand to his mouth. His mother, a cleaner, all these years, and no one noticed. David put his arm around his mother. "She sent me to school with her hard work. Because of her, I became an engineer. Because of her, I bought this company. She is the reason I am here today." Mrs. Brown smiled and wiped a tear from her cheek. David turned back to the passengers. "My mother will now ride this train as a guest of honor. She will have her own seat in first class whenever she wants, and every worker here will get the respect they deserve." The passengers clapped loudly. Thus, little boy smiled up at his mother. "Mom, this is the best train ride ever," he said. David smiled, but he was not finished yet. He took out a small paper from his pocket. "There is one more surprise," he said. Everyone waited. David read from the paper. Next month, this company will open a new training school. It will teach poor young people how to work in the train business, engineers, conductors, managers. The school will be free for the children of workers. Gasps filled the station. A young cleaner in the crowd raised his hand. Sir, does this mean my daughter can become an engineer like you? David smiled warmly. Yes, your daughter can study for free. She can become anything she dreams to be. This is a new beginning for everyone. Cheers filled the platform. Even the rich passengers clapped with joy. Mr. Clark stepped forward. He stood in front of David. Sir, he said softly, I was blind before. I only saw clothes and color, but today you opened my eyes. I promise, I will never judge anyone like that again. Thank you for this lesson. David shook his hand. Mr. Clark, the past is gone. What matters is what you do next. Help me make this company better. Teach respect to every worker and passenger. Mr. Clark nodded with a smile. Everyone felt light in their hearts. The station was full of hope. The passengers returned to the train, but something had changed. They smiled at the workers now. They said thank you to the porters. Even the rich businessmen sat with soft faces. The train was ready to move again. As the wheels started turning, David stood by the window. His mother sat beside him, holding his hand. The little boy ran to the window and waved his golden pass. David smiled and waved back. A new journey had begun, not just for the train, but for everyone, a journey of respect, a journey of kindness. But what surprise would happen at the end of this journey? The passengers wondered. Maybe the biggest secret was still waiting. The best part was not over yet. The train moved slowly away from Greenfield Station. Inside the first-class coach, the air was different now. The rich passengers, the workers, the conductor, everyone felt changed after David's big announcement. For the first time, the passengers smiled at the workers. They said thank you when someone picked up their bags or served them tea. The little boy with the golden pass ran down the aisle happily, waving at everyone. But the journey was not over. David sat quietly in his seat, thinking deeply. His mother sat beside him, holding his hand and smiling proudly. Suddenly, the train slowed down. It was strange. They were not near a normal station. The passengers looked at each other. "Why is the train stopping here?" someone whispered. The conductor quickly came into the coach. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "please remain calm. There is a problem on the tracks ahead. We must stop here for some time." People looked out the window. There was nothing but empty fields and a small forest in the distance. But then they saw something surprising. A group of people stood near the tracks. They looked poor and tired. Their clothes were dirty. Some carried heavy bags. There were children and old people among them. The conductor explained, "These are travelers who lost their way. Their bus broke down. They have no food, no water. They have been walking for hours." The passengers gasped. David stood up. He looked at the conductor. "Bring them here," David said kindly. "They need help." The conductor nodded and hurried away. Some passengers looked nervous. "But, sir, they are so dirty. What if they make the train messy?" a rich man asked. David turned and smiled gently. "This is the final test," he said softly. "The real test of kindness. Will you welcome them? Or will you turn away again?" The passengers became quiet. A few minutes later, the group of tired travelers came into the coach. They looked scared. The children held on to their mothers. The old people leaned on sticks. David stood in front of them. "Welcome, friends," he said kindly. "Please sit. Rest. You are safe here." The travelers looked surprised. A small girl with dirty cheeks looked up at him. "But, sir, this is first class. We are not rich," she whispered. David knelt down. "You are human. You are tired. You need help." "That is all that matters," he said with a smile. The girl smiled shyly. The rich passengers watched. Some felt strange. Could they really share their nice seats with these poor travelers? The little boy with the golden pass stood up. He waved at the small girl. "Come sit with me," he said happily. The girl smiled and sat beside him. The passengers slowly relaxed. One old lady stood up. She gently gave her seat to an old man from the traveler group. "You can sit here, sir," she said, softly. Soon, more passengers did the same. They gave water, food, and blankets to the tired travelers. Mr. Clark stood up, too. He helped a tired woman carry her heavy bag. "Here, ma'am. Let me help you," he said kindly. David watched and smiled. His heart felt warm. This was the moment he had hoped for. The passengers were changing. They were no longer judging by clothes, skin, or money. They were seeing the truth. All people deserved kindness. The conductor came back. "Sir," he said to David, "the track is clear. We can move now." David nodded. "But first I have one last thing to do," he said. He turned to the travelers. "Where are you going?" he asked gently. A man from the group stepped forward. "Sir, we were going to the next city, but our bus broke down. We have no money left. We are lost," he said sadly. David smiled. "You will ride with us in first class for free. I will take you to the next city safely." The travelers gasped. One woman covered her mouth. "No one has ever helped us like this before," she whispered. David turned to the passengers. "Do you all agree?" he asked. The rich passengers stood up. "Yes," they said together. "Let them ride with us." The train started moving again. Inside the coach, something beautiful happened. The rich and poor sat side by side. They shared food. They told stories. They laughed together. Even the small children played happily. The old man who took the seat smiled and told funny stories to the little boy and girl. David sat with his mother watching it all. His dream had come true. For the first time, everyone on the train was treated the same. No one felt less. The train ride was over. The passengers left the train with big smiles on their faces. The poor travelers who had joined them waved goodbye. The workers bowed with respect. Even Mr. Clark promised to be a better man from now on. David stood proudly on the platform with his mother. His heart was full of peace. But little did he know, something unexpected was waiting for him at the company office. A secret, a letter, a surprise that would change everything again. "Come, Mama, let's go to the company building," David said, with a smile. Mrs. Brown, his mother, smiled and nodded. They took a small car to the company's head office in the city. The building was tall, bright, and full of glass windows. The guards at the gate stood straight when they saw David. "Good afternoon, sir." "Welcome back, sir." They greeted him with respect. David smiled and waved at them. Before this day, no one here knew he was the real boss. They only knew the old owner, Mr. Henry, who had sold the company to David secretly. But today, everyone knew the truth. David and his mother stepped into the main hall. All the workers stood up and clapped for them. "Welcome, sir! Welcome, madam!" they said loudly. Mrs. Brown felt shy. She had never imagined so many people would greet her like this. She had cleaned these floors for years, but no one had looked at her before. Now they all smiled at her with respect. David walked to his office. Suddenly, his assistant, Mr. Lewis, ran to him. He looked worried. "Sir, there is something important for you," he said. "What is it?" David asked. Mr. Lewis held out a white envelope. "This letter arrived today. It has the company's old seal. It was hidden in the old boss's safe. We just found it." David took the letter. The paper felt old. He slowly opened it. The office became quiet. Everyone waited. David read the letter. His eyes opened wide. His heart beat fast. "What is it, son?" Mrs. Brown asked softly. David read aloud. To the future owner of this company, if you are reading this letter, it means you now own the train company. But there is something you must know, a secret that only the true owner can see. David paused. Everyone leaned closer. He continued. Many years ago, this company was started by a poor man, a black man, who worked hard all his life. But the company was taken from him by force. The papers were stolen. His family lost everything. He died with a broken heart. David felt cold. His mother gasped. His name was Thomas Brown. David's eyes filled with tears. Thomas Brown, his grandfather, his mother's father. He kept reading. Thomas Brown was cheated, but his spirit stayed strong. He said one day his family would get justice, and now it has happened. The company has returned to the real family. David's hands shook. His mother covered her mouth in shock. This company is yours by right. You are the true owner. The papers inside this envelope are the proof. You do not need anyone's permission. You are the rightful leader of this company forever. David finished reading. The office was silent. No one moved. Mr. Lewis looked surprised. Sir, this means you didn't just buy this company. You were always meant to own it. David closed his eyes. His grandfather's face came into his mind. A strong man. A man who had lost everything because of greed and lies. But his dream had not died. His grandson had brought the company back. Mama? David said softly. Grandpa was right. His dream came true. We are finally home. Mrs. Brown wiped her tears. He is smiling in heaven now, she whispered. The workers in the office clapped. Some wiped their eyes. Mr. Clark, who had followed quietly behind, stepped forward. He looked at David with respect. Sir, I judged, you before. I was blind. But now I see the truth. You were always meant to be the leader. I am sorry for everything. David put a hand on Mr. Clark's shoulder. The past is gone. What matters is the future. Will you help me build a better company for all people? He asked kindly. Mr. Clark nodded. Yes, sir, I will. David turned to the workers. Today is the real beginning of this company. Not built on lies, not built on greed, but on truth and justice. From now on, every worker will be treated with respect. Every child of every worker will have a chance to rise. No more secrets. No more shame. The workers cheered. The air felt fresh, full of hope. Then, Mr. Lewis spoke again. Sir, there is one more thing, he said. He handed David a small black box. David opened it. Inside was a golden pocket watch. On the back were these words, to my grandson, for the day you make our family proud. Love, Grandpa Thomas. David smiled with tears in his eyes. His hand closed around the watch. His mother hugged him tightly. You did it, my son. You made him proud, she said softly. The workers clapped again. It felt like a new world, a world where color, money, and pride no longer ruled. Only truth and kindness mattered now. David put the watch in his pocket. He stood tall and looked at everyone. Tomorrow we start building new schools, new homes, new dreams, not just for the rich, but for everyone. The workers cheered loudly. Even the office guards smiled. David's heart was full, but deep inside, he knew. One last thing was waiting, one final challenge, a choice that would change everything forever. But what was it? What would happen next? The big office was still filled with clapping and happy faces. David stood with his mother by his side. In his hand, he held the golden pocket watch from his grandfather. On his desk lay the old letter that proved he was the true owner of the company. Everyone felt proud. Everyone felt happy. But deep inside David's heart, he knew something important was left. A final decision. a choice that would change the company forever. That night, David sat alone in his office. He looked out the big glass window. The city lights sparkled like stars. His mother came in quietly and sat beside him. "What is wrong, my son?" she asked gently. David sighed. "Mama, today I got everything. Respect, power, truth. But I also saw something else." His mother listened carefully. "I saw fear in some people's eyes, the rich passengers, the old managers. They are afraid I will punish them, fire them, take revenge." His mother touched his hand. "And will you?" she asked softly. David shook his head. "No, but I must show everyone what kind of leader I want to be. I must make a choice that teaches them forever." His mother smiled. "Then follow your heart, my son. Make the choice that brings peace to all." The next morning, David called for a big meeting. All the workers came. The managers came, the train drivers, the cleaners, the ticket sellers, even Mr. Clark and the rich passengers from the train ride came to hear what he would say. David stood in front of them. The room became silent. You could hear a pin drop. He began to speak. "My friends," David said loudly, "yesterday you learned a secret. You learned that this company always belonged to my family. Many years ago, my grandfather, Thomas Brown, was the true owner. But bad men cheated him. They took everything away." The crowd listened carefully. "Now the company is back in our hands. I have the power to do anything I want. I can fire the managers who treated me badly. I can make the rich passengers pay for looking down on me. I can take revenge." The room became tense. Some workers smiled. Some managers looked worried. Mr. Clark turned pale. David raised his hand. "But I will not do these things." Everyone gasped. David smiled gently. "I will not use power for revenge. I will use it for change, for kindness, for good." The workers clapped. David continued. "No one will lose their job today. But there will be new rules. Rules for fairness, rules for respect. From this day, no man or woman will be judged by their skin color. No one will be treated badly because they are poor. Every worker's child will get free education. Every family will get safe homes. Every cleaner, every driver, every cook will be treated like family." The room exploded with cheers. Tears filled some eyes. Even the old managers clapped softly. David turned to Mr. Clark. "Mr. Clark," he said kindly, "you were unkind to me and my mother, but you also showed change. You helped the poor travelers on the train. Will you promise to lead with kindness from now on?" Mr. Clark stepped forward. He bowed deeply. "Yes, sir. I promise. I was blind before, but now I see." David smiled. The crowd cheered again. Then something very surprising happened. The rich man from the train, the one who had said, "You don't belong here," stood up. He looked nervous. "Sir, may I speak?" he asked. David nodded. The man walked to the front. "I was wrong," he said loudly. "I judged you because of your color. I am ashamed. Please forgive me. Teach me to be better." The room became quiet. David walked to the man. He held out his hand. The man shook it with tears in his eyes. "You are already learning, sir," David said kindly. "Kindness starts with a small step, like this one." The crowd clapped again. Mrs. Brown wiped her eyes. "My son," she whispered, "you are building a new world." Suddenly, Mr. Lewis, the assistant, rushed in. "Sir, the news is everywhere. The whole city knows what happened on the train." "Reporters want to talk to you." David smiled. "Let them come," he said calmly. "Let the world hear this story. Let them see that color and money do not matter. Only the heart does." The reporters came quickly. They took photos. They asked questions. David stood proudly beside his mother. He spoke clearly. "I am David Brown. My grandfather built this company. It was stolen from him. But now justice is done. I forgive the past. I welcome the future. This company will serve all people, rich or poor, black or white. No one will be ignored again. The reporters cheered. The story went across the whole country. People everywhere were shocked. People everywhere were inspired. A poor cleaning woman's son, now the true owner, a man who forgave instead of punished, a leader who chose kindness. Weeks passed. The train company changed. New schools were